Welcome to the Creators Origin Podcast, where actors, creators, and leaders in the Atlanta filmmaking industry tell their stories. We're here to cut through the fluff and get down and dirty with the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with success in the industry. Who did that in one breath? I'm here with my guest today, Ryan McCurdy, director and writer of the film Pears, that is now out on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Thanks for coming, Ryan. I had the chance to watch your film either a couple last week, and I really liked it. Was this your first independent film you've made?
It's my first feature. First feature film.
So you've done shorts before.
I've done tons of shorts before.
How many shorts have you done, roughly?
I don't know. Maybe like 10, 12. Probably more than that. But again, it's like,
That's a healthy number.
Yeah. It's like, what do you distinctly just say, oh, this is a short or this is, you know what I mean? So.
Okay. I was saying in particular, I was like, this is your first film you made. I was like, wow. Because I look at my first film I made, which was bordering on short. It was like 40 minutes. Still technically a short, but I look back on that and I'm like, man, that thing was a pile of doo-doo. But this, I really liked Pears. Just tell me kind of basic, like, inspiration for the film. I'm not going to ask where do you get your ideas, because that's a shitty question. You ever heard that?
Well, no, the question, the standard question is like, what was the inspiration? Like every film festival, it's like, what was the inspiration behind your movie? And then you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And you're like,
have you seen it's the clip of, who is it? It's some interview. It's some comedian. He always goes, he's like, where do you get your ideas? Because he knows that's the shittiest question. People are like, from my head, like I don't
know. Where do you think, like, you know?
But what was inspirational to you, especially to do like a detective movie? I did get a little bit of Ferris Bueller at the beginning. I don't know if there was any of that.
Yeah, I never,
that kind of vibe.
Yeah, never. So it all kind of started with I would be driving home and back and forth from work, and I'm listening to audiobooks. And I've always been into film noir. Like, I'd always enjoyed film noir type stories. And there's kind of a distinction in film noir, because I think people usually go film noir, and you think of, like, as a kid watching like a cartoon or something, they always parody it with like the Venetian blinds and like the detective, and then there's the dame that walks in and that kind of thing. That's true for like maybe 10% of film noir. Like, it's not true for all films, but like the progenitor of like that kind of story came from this author named Raymond Chandler. Chandler had written, he wrote Double Indemnity with Billy Wilder back in the 40s. Was it the 40s? Yes, like early 40s, mid 40s. And that was kind of like the Double Indemnity was kind of one of the first noirs that most people latch onto. Is like, that's what people think of, because it's got all of the internal monologues and all that stuff. But I was listening to books by him, and he has this detective character named Philip Marlowe. And Philip Marlowe is kind of like the early hardboiled detective, or he is like the first kind of hardboiled detective character you tend to see in a lot of these books. He predates Mike Hammer for a couple of years. Mike Hammer was also another one of those, but Mike Hammer's a little more vulgar. Philip Marlowe was... but he was used in a lot of other stories. There was such as like, I don't know if you're familiar with like The Big Sleep or The Long Goodbye, which is a later movie. Another one being Murder My Sweet, which I think the original book is Farewell My Lovely. They changed the title because they wanted to sound more thrilling, I guess. But so I listened to almost like every single one of those books, and I was really kind of drawn to like, oh yeah, I think I wanted to do a movie. At the same time, I've been at that point where I was like, I want to do a feature. And not to get too sentimental in this podcast, because I know we're just talking about making movies, but like I was diagnosed with cancer back in 2020. So it was like right when 2020 hit, right when the pandemic hit is when it happened. And I was diagnosed with leukemia. So when that kind of happens, you're just like, yeah, I need to get on with my life. I need to do the things that I wanted to do. Yeah. But I'm fine. So like, I know people are gonna go like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm."
And that was when you started writing. Was when you got that diagnosis?
Not when that. No, it was a couple years after that. Okay. Like it was like, I was working some other projects and just working in general in the film industry and doing those types of hustle jobs. But
it kind of kicked your ass into gear. You're like, what do I want to do? What do I want to make? Man, wow, that is.
Yeah.
That is so interesting to think, like, especially as I'm, I'm 28, so I guess I'm not like an old guy by
No.
any means, but I'm definitely like, wow, I'm not in my early 20s anymore.
Yeah.
What am I doing? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
Time isn't forever.
Right.
Like if
it starts kicking in at that time too.
like
You just start
today's
like,
the day. What can I work on? How can I push this forward? And it's so interesting to get.
Yeah.
It's been a real like kick in the head of motivation.
Yeah. So, but just back on track with so I've always liked noirs and stuff like that. But, and I think it was a video I'd seen many years ago about making your first feature. A lot of people want to make something like very serious and very dramatic and very emotional. And I was like, I could do that, but wouldn't it be better just do something a little more fun? And that's kind of where I leaned into like, okay, well, it could be like a fun, detective story, but maybe it's like a modern day PI. Like, what do modern day PIs do? So I did a little bit of research on modern day PIs. Some of that stuff actually does end up in the movie. But I had some friends, like my friend Kevin Arnold, who plays Pears. I'd worked with him on other short films we had done in the past, and he tends to lean better into the comedy aspect stuff. So I was like kind of writing that character as kind of like not like an idiot, so to speak, but just somebody who screws things up all the time. Like he's not perfect. And his best superpower is like he can BS his way out of situations. So he might be, he might be in a bind, but he just kind of lies his way out of it. And that's kind of his way he gets around things. But he's not always the best person that you'd be like, I'm going to hire this guy as the PI. And I just thought that would be kind of like a fun way to go about it. But you were telling me about how do you get from that idea to like making the film? And it was also going, okay, what do I have at my disposal? What resources do I have? And I think that's kind of like when you're making your no budget film is kind of the first thing you need to start. Because a lot of times you'll go into like, I have this great idea for this fantasy story or a great idea for this. And the struggle is it's you're going up a hill, right? Because you're like, okay, I've got to, I'm going to write this crazy story with all these explosions or we've got to create all these props. We have to have all these, like I was just upstairs, it's all the swords and all that stuff. So it's like, you got to have all these props. That's going to cost a lot of money versus going, what do I have right now at my disposal? What people do I know that have a place that I could use to film? Who has a prop that I could use? What are some actors that I know that I've worked with before, and kind of going in that route. And so Pears is kind of the culmination of like being a fan of those noir stories, and at the same time going, okay, I know I can get this location, and that's kind of how the whole thing came together.
So using the term no budget, we don't mean that literally.
Right.
Like what does no budget mean to you?
So no budget for me was like, for us it was like roughly $3,000.
Okay.
So which is not a lot.
Budget. Yes.
Micro budget. It's like nothing.
Which it's like, okay, catering.
Yeah.
Like that's
exactly.
So you had to call in some favors.
Yes.
I take it. I was going to ask about locations because there's a lot of really cool locations. You got lawyer's office, there's a comic book store or something like with some Funko Pops.
Yeah.
Motel. Like, were these all just favors you called in, people you knew?
A combination of stuff. So a lot of the houses are my friends' places. So the first house you see, that's a friend's house. The Archer's residence, that's my buddy Dan's house. He's actually one of the people that actually helped with the film a lot as well. And we also used he owned an iFix store. It's called iFix Phones, but it's a phone store. But he also, at the same time, he has all these Funko Pops that he collects and he resells them through like WhatsApp as well. So that store is kind of like a combo store. So I knew I was going to use those places. The comic book store was friends, like, because I used to live in Evansville and I knew a lot of people in Evansville. And there was a comic book store had opened up not that close to me, and my friend Dan and I both knew the owner. So I was able to talk him into it. And he's like, yeah, sure. You can, shoot here, whatever. That's fine. You just make sure it's like during this time. And I was like, can we schedule it like before you guys open so we're not being bothered by customers like that? That's fine. So I shot there. The arcade bar, that was another one where it's like I kind of knew the owners a little bit. So we were able to schedule something there. That one's a little more difficult because I wanted to shoot it at night, of course, because he walks into the bar.
It's like prime time for them. Yeah.
So the workaround was they were like, you can film, but it has to be on a Saturday morning. The problem is they have these big windows. So it's like when you're in the bar, you don't want it to make it look like daylight. So luckily I had a bunch of duvetine that I could just put up on all the windows, and we taped that up. So we shot that scene, and then later when we went back, when we started, we just needed a shot just to marry that. We're out at night, so he goes into the place when it's still busy working, and then of course when we get in there, it's like it's daytime when we shot it. But it looks like when you watch the movie, you don't really think about it at all.
You don't, yeah. We had to do the same thing on my last film. It was a restaurant scene at night, but we had to do it at butt crack of dawn in the morning. And my boys came through and just like blacked out all of the windows. And you just don't notice it. You just look. It's not in the foreground. It's just not really something you pay attention to. So it works, but yeah, it's labor intensive.
And it helps in your mind's eye when you're like, you have the shot before and after of just like, oh, it's nighttime out, or the exterior shot. And you're like, oh, okay. So then it really kind of sells it. Let's see, what other ones you said? Oh, I think you're talking about the lawyer's office. You're talking about Hightower's office. That was another one where I knew the people I knew some people, but it was more like we were trying to find the interior location. My wife, whose uncle was like willing to help us out. He's like, yeah, I can help you out, get some locations or whatever. He went out and he had found some spots. He found like the exterior for that house. And we wanted to shoot inside of some place. There was actually another house that I really wanted to film at. The funny story is the house that I wanted to film at, the guy who owned the place was like, no. And it was like a really gorgeous looking house, but they had also filmed A League of Their Own in Evansville many years ago. And the guy was just like, well, if I'm trying to remember the actor or the director's name of that movie, Penny Marshall, right? He said, well, if I can say no to Penny Marshall, I'm definitely going to say no to these guys, kind of thing. So I didn't get that location. But then the other one was like a historic house in Evansville. It's called the Wrights Home. And I knew trying to think of the title, like Docent or something like that. I knew him, and I was able to use that place.
So it ended up, you knew a bunch of people from years of working in the industry, of just happening to like have friends.
Right.
It's like,
right.
That's a real cheat code in life, is have friends. And you can get, I'm still trying to achieve that one.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, that's locations can get so expensive so quick. If you go into Gigster or Peer Space and try to hire stuff out for the day, it's like that'll eat up your budget so fast. So I think, what I have really tried to communicate to other people in the industry, I've got a high-rise condo, I've got access to this studio, like these kind of things. I'm like, how do I communicate with other people who have these resources and who want to make films? And we share these resources, and we're like, hey, you might need to use this, I can use that, so that we don't drive our budgets up through the roof on these, renting out these spaces for $2,000 a day.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the character. His name is Pears. What was the full name of the character?
It's Perry Matthews.
Yeah, Perry Matthews. I think you talked about, hey, he's kind of bumbling. He's not very good at his job, and I didn't find him to be particularly likable. And was that a conscious choice to kind of carry that on throughout the film? Was there anything you would have done differently with that character?
I don't think so. I think Pears, is like in life, I think nobody is perfect, right? But even with the stories, you want to start at some place and get someplace. You want to start at a low point and get to a high point. And so with that character, I think even it kind of reminds me of like Willy Wonka, where the end of the movie, Charlie's asking Willy Wonka, like, what happened to all those? What about the other kids? Are they going to be okay? And he's like, the other people will be fine, except they'll be maybe a little bit wiser. And I think that's where Pears is at the end of the movie. He's maybe not 100% like going to be this super PI, but he's like definitely just a little bit more cognizant and kind of learns his lessons of like not being as immature, not being as carefree about certain things. And I think that's kind of what this character is going through as he's going through the story.
It's different from some films where someone may do like a massive turnaround and like they've this big revelation or something. It's kind of it's more subtle. It's it's kind of I had trouble a little bit with writing characters, particularly characters I was playing in the beginning. My friend Casey would always give me this feedback. He's like, I don't like this guy. Like, I don't particularly like him. he would talk to me about like a save the cat
Right.
moment. This
Yeah.
is a concept I'm sure.
Right. And I'm very well aware of the Save the Cat.
Did you plan out any kind of, did you have an idea for a save the cat moment that you almost did or decided not to do?
No, I think his Save the Cat moment, I mean, if you didn't like him, I think it's more of like you still have to root for him because you're still like, you know, what his struggle is that he's helping out his sister that we obviously see he dearly loves because every scene that he's in, he hugs her, which I'm like, looking back at the movie is one thing I probably would have changed. But regardless of that, it's like, obviously he loves his sister. He knows this means a lot to her. He doesn't necessarily like his brother-in-law, even though he's trying to piggyback off his profession to kind of get something going for him in his life. So we're kind of rooting for him in those respects. Also, he gets beat up constantly in this movie, which is also something where you kind of feel a little bit bad for him. You're like, man, that sucks. He's just kind of doing his job, and then he's getting punched in the face. He's getting, and he's always ending up in these terrible situations, but he kind of has a heavy burden to carry throughout the whole film. But also, I think Save the Cat kind of gets it wrong. Like, I get because in that book, he talks about Aladdin giving the bread to the kids early in the movie, so you're on board with this guy. I think some people misinterpret that as like, you got to become likable. I think it's not so much likability as it is
relatability.
Relatability is really, yeah. It's like there's got to be something there where you're on some level. Like even a movie like Nightcrawler, I think people pointed out, it's like Jake Gyllenhaal's character is not likable in that movie at all. But you kind of grab onto his tenacity. He's really just like, he's a go-getter. You're like, okay, this guy's, he's going somewhere. I don't like him, but there's something about him that I want to know what's going to happen next.
People talk about this as well with like Seinfeld. Like that's a good example. Like none of those characters are likable. These are all like very bad people, but you still find
if you met them in real life, I think that's the big caveat to that. But yes,
but you find yourself rooting for them regardless because you're like, oh, I could kind of see myself in that situation, trying to maybe lie my way out of that. People are not necessarily as good as they would maybe like to present themselves. It's so easy watching a character talking about what they should do, or I would never do that, when you're not actually in their shoes, when you're not having to make those tough decisions. It's easy to judge. But I think an example of that recently is did you watch the new season of Squid Game?
I've never seen Squid Game.
Okay. Life or death competitions, a lot of tough choices people are making, and I particularly saw a lot of people making the commentary of like, I can't believe this person would do that. I would never. I'm like, I want to see you in a life or death situation, and where you got to make a choice for your own survival, and tell me how good your morals stand up. Right. Because it's not the same when you're in it, when you don't have that hindsight or that, that context of like it being a film.
Yeah. I mean, we're sitting here in like a D&D room right now, and I'm thinking about like D&D and specifically where you're like, you have to make choices. And sometimes people, you might on the outside be like, you wanted to murder that character, and you're like, well, I was trying to get to this thing, because you're thinking of that goal. Well, like, but then also my character might be chaotic or something like that. And I think like in that regards, like Pears is more of like a chaotic good type character where he does break the rules. And I think a lot of times in that tropes of being a PI, like that was, as far as noir goes, not necessarily real life PIs, but they tend to try to like bend the rules just ever so slightly just to kind of to solve the case.
Yeah. I think if you are able to, like you said, relate and not judging your characters makes you a better writer.
Yeah.
Just say, oh, this person's a fucking dick. Fuck them. Yeah. They're just an asshole. It's like that leads to one-dimensional characters.
Right. And I think you need to have I think you also kind of need to just be cognizant of your character should have a weakness. There should be something he's not good at. Because I think that actually benefits for the rest of the story. If he's too perfect, then it's like, why am I following this character? But then you have situations like Wonder Woman where it's like, that character's too perfect, but because they're too perfect, they're very naive. So they have to have a weakness. Every character has to have something,
What would you have done differently as far as the entire process, looking back? Like, what was a big mistake?
Man, there's a lot. But I mean, when I went out to make this, like I thought, I didn't have this mindset. I'm like, I'm going to Sundance. I'm going to, Cannes. I was like, okay, let's like tone it down. You're not going to do those things, but I'm going to learn from this. This is going to be a stepping stone. This is going to be a learning process type thing. And I'm going to make mistakes, and that's going to be a good thing. I think from the pre-production side, as far as the writing goes, there's a lot of scenes that I probably would have tightened the first act a little bit more, or I've reworked it a little bit. I think some people get maybe a little, when they go into it, they might be like a little confused at some things. And I did that intentionally, where it's like you as the audience are going to try to figure out these things. And I think most people usually figure it out by the second, like right into the second act. They're like, oh, okay, I kind of see what's going on. I see that he's got a goal. He's got to go on this journey. So I might have reworked the first act a little bit. As far as like the production goes, there's some things, or as far as the way it was shot, that I may have changed. I was very strict. I gave a strict code to myself that I was like, I'm going to shoot everything on tripod, which is like, I think it helps ground the film at times, but I think by doing so, there are some scenes where I think would have worked better if it was handheld. It would have given a little more frantic nature to certain scenes, and I think it would have helped. So there's those little like moments where I'm like, I wish I'd done this differently or shot this.
Is there a big one, like a big lesson that you're
I would have also shot more. I mean, the movie's not very long. It's 70 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I intended it to be in that ballpark of 70 to 80 minutes, but there's a lot of stuff where I was like, man, I wish I had just got an extra shot here or there, or maybe gotten some more B-roll, or maybe gotten more of just Pears. Like even the scene where Pears is going after Derek, and he's following him or tailing him. I should have gotten more stuff instead of what I did get. But those are all things that's like, it's hindsight's 20/20. You don't know that when you're in the midst of it, but then afterwards, and you look back and you're reviewing the film and you're editing it, you're like, oh yeah, I wish I could have done so much more.
Mm-hmm. That's the type of thing where it's so good to have a crew that you know and who are in love with the project as you are. And so when it's that long hours, it's that 12th hour, and you're like, oh, this would be so good if we just get that one more thing.
Right.
They're on board. They're not like rolling their eyes. They're like, yes, okay, you're right. Let's just stick it out.
There are those moments, and I've been on sets where, and I think maybe it was on Pears as well, where you're like, oh, wouldn't it be great? Oh, I'm like, oh, we don't have time. Like, wouldn't it be great if we just got this extra thing? And everyone's like, no, yeah, we could do it. Like, let's do it.
That's
and you're like, and like those are the good moments. You're like, and you just kind of look back and you're like, I kind of appreciated that. Like, I thought I wasn't going to be able to do that, or like, oh, we're not going to have time because I know everyone else's time is very important and they might not want to waste it. But then they're like on board. They're like, no, we should get that.
You need a team who is going to, be real with you and tell you when you're being crazy, but also hype you up when you're
on their lows.
When you're on the low.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to Rachel Page, who I had in the last episode, who's been an actor in the last 3 of my films. And we have gotten to the point in our relationship where she will look me in the eye and tell me anything. She does not hold back anything. I'm like, that's who I need to keep around. I need more people who are going to look at me and tell me for real what I need to hear.
Right.
But I think as directors on set, it's up to us to foster those environments where people feel comfortable with telling you how it is.
Yeah, I think it's like a combination of things. I think that's why that's called collaboration, right? Like you need to have a little bit of pushback. I think I think that's the lesson I'm still learning, is like, if you're too egocentric, or you're too like, I've got this idea, this is how we're shooting, this is how it's going to happen. If you're too strict on that, and you're not willing to bend just a little bit or sway, you're going to hurt yourself, right? So you kind of have to be able to listen to other people's ideas, kind of get a little bit of feedback here and there. But I do think you still need to keep some structure, because you are the person that's going to, like, you can't be too loosey-goosey and be like, oh yeah, sure, we can do that.
Let's hear what everybody has to say on this. This is a democracy.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a democracy. I think it does need to be a monarchy of sort, right? I think that's a better analogy, because like dictator sounds terrible.
I am the king.
right. But like being a king, you have to be like interested in like
listen
what
to
your subjects have to say though, because you're taking care of your subjects as well. Like you have to. I don't know. It's a
funny way of putting it.
Yeah.
It all comes down to being a good leader, and I've learned so much about leadership through directing, and I'm like, there's times when I made such leadership blunders,
right?
And I'm like, man, I am so lucky people still want to Still want to be part of my team after that.
carrying the flag essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, man. What about the music in the film? Who did the soundtrack? Is that?
That's a great question. So my friend Daniel Roach, different Daniel. I have two friends that are Dan. My friend Daniel Roach, we used to work together. So a little quick backstory. When I lived in Evansville, I worked in television. And so I worked at a TV station. And for a period of that time, I was doing commercial stuff. So I was doing all the promotions for the show, for the TV station. And he worked in the commercial side of things. And that's how we met. Well, that's actually not true. We met in school. But when we really got to know each other a little bit more when we worked. And he really did a lot of music. And so at one point, I'd done these little small shorts and things, and which is the logo for Man Throws Sticks, the production company. That's actually him on the logo, raising his arms like that, which is attached to a little short. But he did the music for that. And ever since then, I was like, hey, can you do the music? And he was always willing and wanting to do that because it's just a great creative outlet to just do little bits of music. So he did all the music for the film. I'm kind of someone who doesn't really like stock music for a lot of stuff. I notice, particularly for me, I've been to film festivals where I'll be sitting in the audience or watching a row of these independent movies and really low budget shorts. And I think that's like the last thing people think about is like, oh, I need to have music for this. So what do? They go to some website that's, if this is YouTube, of course, I'm going to talk about it. It's going to end up in the reel of like, you should go to, I don't know, music.com and get your music.
And you end up hearing the same tracks and it really takes you out of it. See, music is one of the first things I think, like when I'm writing, I'm listening to music and thinking what are the ups and downs? Because my films are very music heavy. Right. It's pretty much every scene has got music in it. It's very dramatic. It's very... But yeah, music is so important.
It helps underline and really kind of draw you into what the feel you want. And so I think there are some people that I've talked to that don't like that. They don't like the idea that the music would drive your story. And I think to some degree, I think that's true. You should be seeing the performances and the way that people act. That should kind of help you understand what is going on. But I do think music really does help underline it and kind of also brings like just an extra element, but it is something that I always think about when I'm making my movies.
It takes more skill to do it without. It does. But I like it. It's just the way I like to watch. It's just the way I like to boost it up to that next level. What message do you want people to walk away with watching Pears? What do you want them to walk away and take from it?
Well, I mean, I want people to have a good time. I want people to enjoy it. I think that's the reaction I've gotten. A lot of people, they're like, "Oh, that was a lot of fun," you know. There is like a deeper meaning to the movie, but it's not so much that I'm trying to be like, "Oh, you got to learn this lesson." But for me, it's like you have this character of Pears who, just like me, just like you, we're struggling. We're trying to find what we're doing in life. You know, Pears is a character who doesn't know what he wants to do. He's had all these different jobs, and so he's like trying to stick to something to learn from it. And we're always struggling and we're always going to screw up. But eventually, you know, through that messing up, eventually you're going to find those teachers in life that are going to kind of help put you in the right direction. And I think that's kind of what the message of the movie is, but I don't think anybody's going to watch the movie and think that when they're seeing it, because I think they're just going to have a good time. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Any sequel underway?
If you watch the end of the movie, it does say, like, specifically, I said, Pears will not return. And,
I do remember that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people, and which is funny, I've shown it to some people and I've done interviews and they're like, oh wait, there was another ending. I'm like, yeah, it's the very, very end. Part of that was because I just like, even this morning, my father-in-law is just like, hey, I got an idea for your sequel to Pears. And I'm just like, I don't really want to do a sequel. I'd rather, I want to go on and do something else. If I decide like, oh yeah, I want to go back to this, I might go back to the bumbling goon characters of Sly and Richie and maybe do something with that is kind of my thought. I already have kind of another script I'm working on. I'm not sure if that's something I'm going to be able to shoot myself for
different genre,
or if it's sort of in the same genre. It's a heist film, but it's more like slightly more comedic, but maybe a little more toned down as far as language and things like that. So but yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on now. But I don't know. I don't foresee myself doing a sequel necessarily of this movie, but maybe a spiritual sequel.
If you had an unlimited budget, what is the project that you would create?
Oh my gosh. That's a tough question. I would have to like sit down and write a report about that question.
What genre would you lean towards?
If
Fantasy?
I had the money for the genre, I'd probably lean into science fiction. Probably.
Have you watched The 100?
No, I haven't, but I vaguely know what the show is.
That's one of my preferred science fiction. I like that. It's, space and AI and post-apocalyptic world's been destroyed. But yeah, that's a good science fiction. Is there a science fiction example that you would go to as like that's the type of thing?
Well, there's like two mindsets, right? Like there's like my genre mindset of stuff where I love superhero stuff. I love Star Trek and Star Wars and all those types of things. But then there's also like the more critical thinking type movies like Seconds, which is like, if you haven't seen The Substance, that movie is essentially what The Substance is drawing a lot of its inspiration from. So in like more like Twilight Zone type thing. I think for a film though, if it was like a genre film, I would lean more in like the Star Wars, Star Trek type, big space epic type thing. But I think I have to find the right story. And honestly, right now, it's like I'm more focused on trying to do my own stuff that I'm thinking, okay, I'm not doing science fiction. I'm not doing these things because I know like the things that you're going to have to do to make that really work. So I'd rather focus on doing stories that I think I could produce, and also stories that I think are more about the people and their struggles versus the space mechanics or whatever the mechanic might be. But who knows? I mean, maybe I come up with a science fiction thing next. Who knows? But yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Where can people support Pears?
So currently right now it is on Amazon Prime Video. You can rent or own the film. It is also to be available on Tubi. I just don't know when that date is yet. Hopefully maybe in the near future. But yeah, that's where's Pears at. You can also check out the trailer and everything else online. There's also the Instagram page. It's Pears Movie at Pears Movie on Instagram as well.
What's your YouTube channel for your production?
I think it's just my name. I think it's under. I should change that. I need to change that.
We'll get some links in there.
Yeah.
If you would like to book this space for your own podcast or content creation, you can do so at creators-origin.com/space. If you'd like to be featured on the Creators Origin podcast, DM the Instagram page. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.